Hiya men and women and girls and boys and dogs and cats and fish and toads and tortoises and turtles and all sorts. Welcome back. Part 7 now of this build of this Chieftain, and yes, it's dragging out a bit, but it's how a lot of people like it. If you look in the comments, you'll see a lot of people say they love to see everything rather than just a 20-minute one build video. So that's what you get. So if you remember in end of part 6 we got the turret assembled and I got this armour on the front here. We left all that clamped, that's been on there for 24 hours now, so that's all dry. So now we're going to look at putting a weld seam in here. You can hardly see it because it's whiting out, but there's a join there where the panel goes in, so there's a weld seam down there. It's not very pronounced in real life. It looks like it's sort of ground down on the versions I've got in this fantastic book that the lovely Phil sent me. Very, very handy. So I'm going to make a weld. So I've got a little tea light here, a little candle, and I've got a piece of sprue. Now I was going to use a piece of the Meng sprue, which is lovely plastic, but I thought to make it easier for you to see, I'll use a piece of Hobby Boss sprue from the Scammell. So I'm just going to hold the sprue over the candle and watch for it to turn shiny, and it'll start to bend. Start to flop over. There you go, you can see it flopping over now, and I'm keeping it turning so that it's nice and even, and you'll see it go really shiny, and then we can pull it. I'm not pulling out, I'm keeping hold of it because I don't want it to be too thin. I want a thickish piece of stretch spruce. There you go, we can see we've got it there. It's fairly thick, okay, and that should do it. So I might do a bit more. Do a bit more just in case we need it. So I shall hold that end and I'll do it here. Try and avoid that nub in there. Just holding the candle. I've got Fairford on. Today is the 15th of July. I've got Fairford on. So watching that at the moment. There we go, that's good. If you keep going you'll end up with like a hair. What I want is it thicker than a hair. There we go, that's perfect. That's better than the other piece actually. Here we go. So what we do then is cut away the ends where it's thick. Okay. Put the candle out. Move all that out of the way. And now we've got our piece of sprue ready to turn into a weld. And as you can see, it's perhaps slightly too fat, so maybe this one will be better after all. Get rid of that thin bit on the end. Yeah, this will be better. If you compare it to that one there, the weld that's already moulded in, you can see there. So what I'm going to do is go to here. I'm going to go to there. Okay, and bend it up round. If it will bend, I think it probably will. Put a bend in it there. There we go. I'm wondering actually, I think there's a lifting eye or something going in there, isn't there? I think I want to fit that before I do the weld, because then we can probably do the weld around the base of it. Yes, E11. So I'll get that off the sprue, get it cleaned up. I'll look at my references and we'll see if there is actually a weld around that at all. So I'm back in a second. Right, so as you can see here, we've got the weld bead all the way down here, all the way up there, around there, down there, down there. I'm not strictly sure if this is accurate or not, this bit here, but it's going to be easier than trying to fill it. And if you notice it's quite fat there, it's because I'm going to really, really push it in. So what I'm going to do now is absolutely drench this in extra thin. Get it really, really drenched. And then using something blunt like the end of a pair of tweezers like this, I'm going to come along and push it in. As you can see, what I'm doing is making marks in it, and it looks like a weld. Now you can do this with like a soldering iron or something if you want to use heat. I'd rather use the chemical action of the glue to soften the plastic. Okay, and then you can just squash that in, because the welds I'm looking at in the book look to be quite fat, and then they've been roughly ground down. So that's the sort of look I think we're going to try and achieve here. The trouble is it's going to look very odd with the Meng welds because they're very fine and quite pronounced. They're the total opposite of what I'm seeing in the book. So I guess it depends on who welded it, where it was welded, whatever. You can see this plastic is very seriously softened, and we can just manipulate it and then we can make marks in it like this. Just go along and just make, you can hear it now, listen. You can hear it's rough. And then just go over it with some extra thin just to smooth out, take out any rough lumps and bumps. And then if you want to, you can leave it to dry, sand it down a bit, take it off, put another piece on. You can do whatever you like with it, as you can see. And I'll do this one around the lifting eye. We can just come along with our tweezers, get into the corner and just push it in. Just make marks in it, that's all we're doing. And if you want to see what it looks like, I would suggest a thin coat of grey primer, and it will make it pop. And then you can see if you want to go over it again, just a thin coat, and then you can get the extra thin on there again. As you can see, I'm just pushing this in here. And then I'm going to brush this over the top here. Like so. I didn't go down there, did I? And again, let the extra thin do the work, and then just push the plastic rod with the ends of the tweezers to get your weld. You can see it there, how it looks. So I'll carry on and get this done. It's just nothing more to see really, it's just pushing the plastic in. We also need to get a textured finish going on here. So we get plenty of extra thin on there, get that nice and wet. And then we'll get a textured finish going. There you go. So you've got a textured finish on there now. I can catch it in the light. This plastic is not easy to film, guys. And then I'm going to wet this. You can see I'm just piling the glue on. There we are. So I'll just carry on the same as I have done here, and I'll come back and show you what it looks like when it's done. I might put a bit of grey primer on as well so we can see it properly. I've cut that piece to go in there. That's going to be the easiest piece to show you, I think. So we've got that piece of stretch sprue cut to fit in there, and I'll just give it a bit of a tighter turn on the end. That brown mark on my finger is coffee, it's not anything else. So there we go. So what I'm going to do is just put a drop. I fitted that E11 part, by the way, as you can see, and it does indeed have a big weld seam around its base. So I'm just going to put a drop of extra thin in there just to tack this down, just like so. Okay, so that should hold that in position, and then we can come round and just get it roughly in place and just put some extra thin under it just to fix it down. I have to be really quick now because it'll capillary under my finger otherwise. There we go, that's that glued in place. I'm just going to give it a little nudge with a blunt tool just to get it into the groove. There we are. And we'll leave that a few minutes to dry. So I'll go on and fit the other piece. I'm also going to put a piece down here. So I'll go on and get those done, and then when they're in, I'll show you how we get the weld effect. There we go. So you can see I've brush painted the Mr. Surface Road there so you can see the welds. So there you are. So I'm happy with how that looks, and yeah, overall really pleased. So I've been looking at the instructions, what's coming next. We've got this part here which has these two hatches on. I'm not going to fit this on yet because we haven't done the seams and everything on it. And then we've got these parts here. Now F43 is a aerial mount, but I've got those resin ones if you remember, so I'm not going to put that on yet. Got these two parts here, F42, whatever they are. They're some sort of sighting thing, I think, I'm not sure. I'm going to put them on an F22. I'm not going to put these on, or at least F2, that hatch there, because when you look at the paint scheme, we have white and grey going over that hatch, and it's going to be quite difficult to mask it and get a nice clean corner in there. So what I'm going to do is leave the hatch off. Well, I can put it on there because it's such a nice fit, it just clips into place like so. But what I'm going to do when I mask it, you see, I can mask it on there and then lift it off and wrap the masking tape tightly around the edges, and then we'll get a nice clean sharp corner. This one here I think will be okay because the whole area is brown, so we could actually, I mean, I'll just clip that in for now. I may remove it because we've got to get underneath those handles, and masking under them is going to be very difficult. So we'll just paint the hatch brown probably. This little piece here, anything that goes in this rectangle here, all this area here, as you can see, is grey. So that's going to be quite easy to paint. So if I go back to the instructions, back to step 30, what are we on here? Back to step 38. Got this piece here going on, which is all grey, so that'll be okay to have fitted. Okay, so that could just drop down like that. But if you look under here, you can see there's a gap either side. It's like a vent, so we want to make sure we get that painted before we get that fitted. So we're not going to fit that yet. These two F42s, they're going in because they're in the grey area. The grey area. So they're keyed, so they only go in one way, like that. Where's my tweezers? Let me tweezers in here. There we go. So that's gone in there, and then this one goes the other way round. So that one's gone in there. So that's those fitted nicely. I'm just going to grab the brush from the extra thing because we got a bit of oozage there. I thought it had gone all the way down and it hadn't. Same with that one. There we go. So that's them on, and then we've got this lookout thing here. It's got a clear lens to go in there, but I'm not putting that in yet. So that's going to go on that. I guess that could look any angle. And while I was going through the instructions just now, I noticed we've missed out a couple of steps. I've completely jumped ahead. So that can go in there like that. Just have it at any old angle, like so. So that's those bits all done. Obviously I want to paint inside there black and inside there black before that goes on, or it's going to look, we might see some of this horrible light coloured plastic under it. So what's going to be next? We've got all this to do as well. So we've done this, we've got all this to do as well. We've got some sort of greeblies going on here, lifting eyes and stuff. So I think what I'll do is get all this done, because this is all just simple assembly. You don't need to see all that, do you? So I think I'll get all this done, and we'll look at what we're going to do with all this up here, and put the flare sheets to go on as well. I think I may put them together but leave that off to get the primer in behind. Let's see. Right, so I'll be back in a minute and I'll have all that done. Right, there we are, all done. It looks like a drop of glue is capillaried onto that hinge there, because this one is slightly stuck up. So I should have used the extra thing quick setting, because then that would have been might have been broken away and that would have been it. But I don't really worry if it's glued down. My plan is to glue them down after they're primed anyway. But I just want to make sure I get black paint I'd rather have, in case you don't watch my videos, I prime everything in black, because if anything is left unpainted with the final colour, I'd rather have a black shadow than a light grey plastic shadow. So hence why all the deck and everything is all done in black, all the underneath. So that's Mr. Surfacer I use. So there we go, so that's those hinges done. So I think now we've reached the point where I need to start looking at getting some black primer on here, and thinking about what we're going to do, because I need to get paint in, you know, where these flare launchers are going to go. That one is that side, that one's that side. So where these are going to go, you can see I need to make sure I get black paint in behind there and in behind there. Not sure if that's going to be visible, is it in there? I might just fill those holes in there to make them go away, and then sort of then look at what we're going to do camouflage wise and what we're going to put on and what we're not. So I'm not going to put anything on, like for example, you know, if where this box goes, I think this goes over here, doesn't it? No, again, that goes on the back, doesn't it? It's this that goes, I can't remember what goes over there now, but you know, if something goes on there, I'm not going to have that. If I need to mask over it, I'll just mask the two parts separately and then put it together at the end. So I'll get some black painting done, and then I'll be back to see you in a minute. Back again, as you can see, all painted black, so that's all good. So that's our black primer. And if you're kind of thinking, why have you put black down? You're going to be painting a lot of white. Black is the best primer for white, believe me. Turret's all done. As I say, those flat hatches are all painted inside and out and everything, so we can glue them down once we've done the grey, I think. In fact, no, I'll glue them down now. I'll glue them down now. So we'll just put some. We'll just put a drop of cement there, a drop of cement there. I think that should be enough. And if they do come open, it doesn't really matter, does it? But I don't really want them opening because there's nothing to see in there. It's crazy having opening hatches, really. I suppose you might want to put a figure in there. I don't do figures because I can't paint them. I think what I am going to do is just put a drop of cement in there. There we are, and then we won't get a visible white line. As you can see as well, all these bits and pieces have been painted. It's like these are the boxes that go on the back, so I've painted these black on the back in black, so that they fit in there, and you've got all this area under here all black, so that when we put those on, you know, you're not going to see light grey plastic sticking through. But we'll probably, I'm going to look at close up at some photos, but I'd probably paint all this green anyway, because in reality this tank would have been green. A lot of you have told me that, thank you very much. As I'm doing this in real time, it's the 16th of July. 16th of July. You have only seen part 2, so this is part 7, is it? And you've only seen part 2. So a couple of interesting findings. Assembled this reel, this cable reel actually goes in the side. I'm not exactly sure what it's for, but by the time you see this I will know. That's going in the side there. So I was looking about the colours, wondering whether to fit it or not. So I looked in the Meng instructions, and they've got it green. And they've also left the machine gun holder green as well, look, which is very strange. So, which is very strange because on the camouflage one it's black. That's very weird. And the gun mount's black as well. So there we go. Then I started looking at these pictures in this wonderful book that Phil sent me, and I'm looking through, and we can see, I mean there we can't really see it because it's covered up with some bits and pieces, but when we look through we can see where we can see them, where we can actually see the winch reel. It's very, very strange. I've discovered something, because if you remember they said that every camouflage had to be exactly the same so that the enemy couldn't see how many tanks they had. So I'm looking here, and that is obviously white. Okay, and that whole rear corner of the turret is white. So you can see here we've got brown going into white, going into grey, going into white, going into grey. Yeah, so brown, white, grey, grey, brown, white, grey, white, grey. And when you look, we got grey, white, grey. Okay, we can't see the brown on the back, but there's brown there. All right, so you can see there the reel is white. When we go to this picture in the back, and there's those guys painting, look at the turret. He's got brown, grey, brown, grey. Very strange. So I don't really know what's going on there. But, maybe he just made a mistake. But I've got to look up the correct colours as well. So so that was a bit interesting. So I'm going to look into that. This reel, I'm assuming, would all have been painted white. I guess they would have taken the cable off. But I might, just for a bit of interest, I might paint the inside green and then mask it off with a bit of cable or something. And paint the outside white, just to add a bit of, you know, a bit more colour to it. We've got fire extinguishers as well, which are going to go on, which are going to be good. That'll add a bit of colour. I've glued the lens to this light. Very nice that is. So we've got the chrome paint in there. We've got these lights done with the chrome, so they're ready to be assembled. We'll get those together and paint them. I've also painted up, we've got 2 clear headlights, got 2 black headlights, and then we've got the blue on the vision sights. The actual ones on the commander's cupola ring, whatever, they're actually clear. So obviously I've painted them black, so when we take the masking tape off, they'll have a black look to them, which is how they look in the book. And what I've done here, just to add a bit of interest, I've painted inside there green, because there's no way they would have taken that apart. So when we put that together, we should see in there, you should see some green under there. So that'll make life a bit interesting. It won't make life interesting, will it, at all? It won't change life in any way, shape or form. It'll just make it a bit more easy to look at, won't it? A bit more interesting to look at. Come on, Lodge, get your words out. So so there we are. So we're sort of ready, almost. We really are coming to a close. I mean, you can see the boxes. There's hardly anything left, really. It's more bags than sprues. So the one thing I want to get onto now is the bit I've been really looking forward to, because it's fun, are these baskets. So I'm going to get these parts off the sprue here as well, and then I'm going to put them together, and then I'm going to go to the pub with Jess, because we go to the pub every Sunday, and have a couple of beers while these are all setting, and then probably come back to it tomorrow. So I'll see you when I get back. Well, no, I'll see you in a minute when I've got the parts off and we'll get those baskets together. I'm told they're very, very flimsy, so we shall see. Wow, that took some cleaning up. Honestly, there's lots of little sprue nibs on and everything, and you can see on these bits here, like there's 5 on that one, and yeah, and then you've got the seams, of course, because you've got the, you know, got the seams. So all I've done is gone round and cut the tabs off with a nipper, and then cut the true, and then scrape along each piece to get rid of the mould seam. And hopefully that'll be enough to get rid of it. If we do, I think what we'll do is put some primer on it, some grey primer, and then have a good look at them, because to my eye nothing looks worse than round parts with mould seams on them. They look awful. So we're going to glue this together. So we've got this, I believe, is the base. Hang on a second, there's an interesting plane going over.
If I wrote you a song, if I got every word perfectly weighted on a thin piece of paper, would it make any difference? Would it change for the better? If I wrote you a poem, if I posted a letter? Is it maybe because I never knew quite where I was, and suddenly you told me, baby, you're lost? if I wrote you a song, if I got every word perfectly weighted on a thin piece of paper.
So it's Monday now, next day, and these are all nicely done, dried up, so they are lovely. I am just going to go around these corners with a sponge, because if you remember, those ends were all joined together. There was a seam there. So we go, and I've also built this one this morning. So that's all looking good. There we go. So they are gorgeous and very much in scale. So looking through the instructions now, we've got photo etch. We've got a photo etch base to go in. We've got this mesh to go around the sides, and then we've got a piece of like a photo etch basket to go on the outside. They've given us a template to bend with, and the same here, template to bend with, base going in. We've got a box going in as well. I'm not going to pre-paint any of this purely because I want the super glue to stick the brass to the plastic, not the paint. So what we'll probably do here is just get all this off the fret, do some folding, and then we'll get the paint on afterwards. Because the trouble with pre-painting photo etch, especially in areas like this where it's going to be exposed and knocked and all that, you want to get a good joint, and if you do pre-paint it or etch prime it or whatever, you're going to be basically gluing plastic to the paint rather than plastic to the brass. So there we are, there was a nib on there, wasn't there? If you notice this, I don't use a file, I use a sanding stick for sanding brass, purely because it's a lot softer. If you use a file, you have teeth that kind of over it, you know, and if you go sideways it will actually bend it, but you see with the sanding stick I can go sideways all day long and it doesn't bend it at all. So this is a 600 grit, this one. This is an Infini Matador. So there we go. Right. So there we are. Right, that's sanded. I've already pre-sanded all of this. So that's going to go into the base, and then we've got this piece here, which is going to be going into the basket on the sides. Now, I believe this piece is going to fit on top of the lower basket there. So we will have a look. See, I'll do this off camera and then I'll come back when we're ready to fold it up. Alright, so when it comes to folding, as I've mentioned before, if you are new to the hobby, look at your brass parts, see how they're going to go, and work out in your mind how you're going to fold them. It's like, for example, if I fold this end first, I'm going to have trouble getting it to fold this end because it's going to be in the way. So this side's going to have the zigzag in it because, as you can see, here we've got a right bend and a left and then a right, and here we've got a left. So if I fold this up, it's going to be in the way. So we're going to leave that until last, and then I'm going to start on the outside and work my way in. Okay, rather than starting on the outside and working my way out. Sorry, inside and working my way out. Because if I do the inside first, then I've got the problem of having this L section here in the way when I want to bend that. So I'm going to start from the outside and work in. And when you look at your brass, have a look here, we've got this cutout on the bottom corner. And as you can see on there, the cutout, well, you can't really see it, but the cutout is on the bottom, it's not on the top. So look at where the folds are, look at where the folding marks are, and you can see that in that side there is a line there. So with that down, that means the lines are going into the fold. So we're going to fold that one up, we're going to fold that one up, that one's going to get folded down, and that one's going to get folded up. Okay, so you can see on this side there is a line in there to fold, but not there or there. I hope you get what I mean. Be very careful because some photo etch manufacturers aren't very thoughtful with where they put their fold lines. So I'm going to start here. So I'm going to start on this outside edge. I'm going to work my way, just grab it like this, and then I'm going to put my blade into the groove. Okay, and then we can get the blade underneath. That moved then. Get my blade into the groove. Come along and fold that up. Now I don't know if it's 90 degrees. No, that one's going beyond 90 degrees, so we'll deal with that after. That's coming around that corner there. So now I need to bend this one up. So we'll do is we'll come along here. We'll put the groove up against the side there. Tighten that up. Get our blade in and fold up. 90 degrees, this one's going to go tighter than 90, so we're going like that. Then we can turn this over. Come out to here. Get it in the right spot. And then fold that one up. And as you can see, that is going to fit on top of there, like so. So we need to tighten that one up a bit. In fact, I'll do it in the jig so I don't bend the... Get this nice and square. I mean, don't worry if you do yours and it doesn't come out perfect, because I don't think it would have been very perfect anyway. So that one there needs to be tightened up. So we can grab our Tamiya folding pliers if they're narrow enough. Yes, they are. Just bend that one in a touch. I think I went a bit too much then. Yes, I did. That one needs to come in a bit. As you can see, we just play with it until it fits on top of that neatly. And then this one here, we can simply come along with the blade in the groove, press it in, clamp it down, get the blade under and fold it up. That's going to be roughly 90 degrees. So that's going to fit on there like that. As you can see, that needs to come out a bit, so rather than use my fingers, I use the pliers. And there we go. So that can just get glued into the base now. So I'll get that done and then I'll see you later. Right, so here we have the brass parts fitted, not glued in yet. I've got the base in and I've got that cage in, as you can see. So what I'm doing here, just concentrate on this corner, making sure this base plate is pushed back and making sure the frame is pushed back and down. So I've got some clear glue here which is instant. I'm just going to put a drop of that in there. The idea that it will glue that in place and it will glue the two bits of brass together and to the plastic. That's the plan. So that's instantly glued in place, so that's good. Now on this corner, I want to add a tiny drop of glue just to nip that in there. Just a tiny drop. And then I'm going to put a tiny drop underneath to hold the base in, like so. I also need to hold this down here as well, so I'm going to, it's going to be awkward. I'm going to make sure the base is down tight. A drop of glue in there, it's just tiny little drops I'm putting in, you don't need much. And then I'm just going to put a tiny drop in there, and the beauty of this thin stuff is not only is it instant, it's so thin it just capillaries away and you can't see it. If you use tiny drops, we should be fine. Yeah, so I used such a tiny drop it didn't even stick it. There we are. So that's that back edge that with, and I'm going to come along to the side, make sure our photo etch is all matching up in here. So this needs to come back a bit. Just tighten that up a bit. That doesn't, if you are building one of these, that photo etch doesn't perfectly match the base. I don't know if you can see that, but the base is sticking out to your left slightly compared to the basket part. So that's tucked up against there, the base is tucked up against there, so it must be that the bend place on the photo etch is slightly out. So I'm not sure how it looks in the instructions. Yeah, it kind of looks like it's supposed to line up perfectly, but hey ho, I'm not going to worry about that. I don't think I've got anything wrong. So that can just sit like that. Hopefully this won't hinder the fitting of it. So this is going to fit onto the side of the turret here, and that leg's going to go into that slot. No, it's not going to hinder it at all, so that's fine. So what I'm going to do now is hold that down somehow. drop of glue in there. Then we can just grab a soft cotton bud. And that hasn't stuck down at all. I think it's stuck to the base and not the plastic. So we can just run a drop in. Remember, this is underneath, so it won't really be seen. And as I say, it's so thin it practically disappears anyway. So that's in there now, nice and solid. So we've got it held in a couple of spots. So now we can come along with our, just going to clean this off, because that thin and the black do mix together, and you could end up with a fast drying black, which we don't want. Just clean that off of there, and then I'm going to use my applicator to put a run of black cement around here. Black super glue, should I say, not cement. And that will wick into all the gaps, and then we could come along with a cotton bud and just remove the excess. As you can see, you can hardly see anything there now. And that's the beauty of the black. It doesn't dry instantly, so you get a chance to mop it up. You see, you get a lovely joint with hardly any glue showing at all, but it will have wicked in between the brass and the plastic. And that way you get a nice, it doesn't need to be super strong, but if you're going to be dry brushing it and weathering it and perhaps pulling it about a bit, there we go. So that, my friends, is that. That is how I have made a Chieftain turret basket using the Meng kit parts. Hope you enjoyed it, because I did. Right, we've got some other folding up bits to do now. So I've done this piece here, W14, bent that at 90 degrees like they're suggested there, so that's all bent up. Now we've got this piece here, W9, which is there, I've got off the fret, and we're going to bend it around that part H2. So I'm going to put this on here, in the middle. We've got a couple of little rectangles on there to hold the photo etch. That's nice of them to give us that, isn't it? So we can hold that on there and then bend that around, just like so. If you want to anneal it, you can, but I don't think it's really necessary. Okay, so that's gone onto there, that's gone onto there. So what we can do now with our tweezers is just hold that just the other side of the radius and just give it a tweak just to take that springiness out. There we are. And then just put it back on the jig just to make sure we're all good. And we are. It's fitting on there lovely, everything's still nice and square. So there we go. Right, now this has got to glue onto here, and we have hardly any contact area at all. Okay, these legs on the end here, those little legs on the end, they're going to go through, and they're going to be our attachment points to fit it to the plastic. So this is going to be mega flimsy, so I have to be really careful with this. Hold it in tweezers, I think, and then put that on there. Wow. I'm going to have to do this under an optivisor, I think, because I can't see what I'm doing. Yeah, I'm going to have to do it under there. So I'll come back in a minute and show you what it looks like when it's done. Alright, so we got that made. Probably, I would say this is probably the worst design part of the kit. And it's funny, and it always seems to be bloody photo-etch that lets a kit down. They're sort of showing it here, as you can see, of having these two nubbins sticking out at the back and having it flush but having it round. If you do it like that, the base is like too big, and the railing is sort of way inside. In the end, I've soldered it because there was just no way I was going to get it in with super glue. So as you can see here, we've got a bit of a gap in there rather than having it like they suggest being butted up, and I've got it just inside all the way around. And it was much easier to do it with solder than to super glue, because obviously it's also a lot stronger. And I'm not even sure that this will fit inside there now. No, you can see it's not even the same shape. You can see the radii on here are much tighter than they are on there. So it wasn't that easy. The other thing that hasn't helped, Meng have also put in a couple of fold lines in here. So obviously you've got a radius. If you've got a piece of brass that's a radius, that's absolutely fine. But if you put a couple of fold lines in it, when you bend it, it's gonna go. It's not gonna stay round. So I've done a lot of manipulation, pushed it all about a bit, and got something that's half decent. I need to clear that solder out of there. I've got some solder in that gap in there somehow, but I think that's going to be up against the turret anyway, so that'll be okay. So we can glue this on. So we'll grab some of our black super glue. We'll just put a drop. In fact, what I'll do is I'll put a drop on each of these holes, just like so. As I say, this black stuff, it shrinks back, practically being invisible, which is cool. And we could just place that onto those little pins, just like that, and hopefully it will stay there. And I haven't even got it straight because I can't see what I'm bloody doing. I have to go back to the opticians, I think. Yeah, I cannot see those pins. No, I can't get it. I'm going to have to do it through a magnifier. I'll be back in a sec, guys. There we go. That's glued on. Something I did forget to show you as well. I've done the headlight frames, glued them together, and I've used the hull to align them. So they're all glued together. They're very similar to these, beautifully made, beautifully to scale. So that's really nice. I have some good news as well on the tracks. I may have, by the time you see this, I may have already received them. But a gentleman has contacted me. He makes tracks, and he's going to send me a set of Chieftain tracks. So we shall see what they're like. But they're 3D printed. They don't have the problem with the holes in one side and the pins in the other. And they have separate rubber pads, which is going to make it much easier for painting. So all in all, sound good. So we shall see. Right, I'm going to get this one done, which is going to be the same as what you've just seen me do on here, and then I'm going to call it a day. We've also got that plate to go on here, haven't we? And I've got that piece, there's this toolbox to go inside as well, so I'll get that glued in. In fact, I'll paint it first before I glue that in, I think. And then we've got this metal plate to go on as well, which is going to go on this side here. I'm not quite sure what's going to go in there. But there's the plate there, so we'll get that on. But as I said, I'm going to get it all painted first because it's going to be very difficult to get in and around to paint that plate and not have any brass exposed. So I'll get this all done, and then I'll see you back for part 8. And I think in part 8 we're going to be making a start on the painting. I need to decide on the final assembly, what we're going to do, and what we're going to leave off, what we're going to put on, and we'll go from there. So I'll see you for part 8. Thank you for watching, guys. Don't forget to hit the subscribe there if you haven't already. If you've liked the video, hit the thumbs up, and if you haven't, hit the thumbs down. I'll see you all soon. Thank you for watching. Bye for now.